Tier Portal can be frustrating with the amount of retail space that you have to actually look at your code, settings, diagnostics, and things like that in this little sort of middle screen area. And I say little because if you actually have a look at something like a ladder block, whilst you've got the diagnostics open and you're looking at the block interface, suddenly you only actually have this tiny area here. And in a lot of cases, it's not even enough to show one rung or one network. So there are things that you can do about this. For example, making use of the floating windows. If you have more than one screen, this can be dragged down onto a second screen, maximizing the vertical space that you have here. You can do the same for your instructions palette and pop that out onto a second screen. You can't do that with the project tree, and I'm not quite sure why, but Siemens have decided that that must stay pinned to the left-hand side. But you can collapse it if you're not using it. You can set these to auto collapse as well. And you can also pop out entire code windows and then maximize them to sit over the top of Tier Portal so that you can really see exactly what you're doing. And this is really useful for doing online monitoring where you don't want the distractions of taskbars and things like that. You just want to be able to follow the logic and have a look at what you need to have a look at. Up here on the top right, there is the small button to float again, which makes it a floating window again. Or there's this button, which is embed, which embeds it back in to Tier Portal. And the same for this and this. And Tier Portal does do a pretty good job at sort of managing these windows for you and putting things back how they should be. And it's also worth noting that down here, you can see that my objects are grouped together and they're grouped by language. So function block and ladder go together, structured text. This is cause and effect matrix and graph, and then all of my data blocks, which all happen to be instance data. And I'm pretty sure that it will group instance and global data together, but I might be wrong on that. And then down here, if I click this button, which is ungroup, you can have them ungrouped and organize in the order in which they were open. If you right click on an object down here, you do get things like split editor space vertically or horizontally. So if I click this button here, it opens another window. And here you can see that there's also a button for it here. And then if I go ahead and open another block, it opens in the split window. And that can be useful as well, especially for having a look at two blocks that interact with each other and being able to view both of them at the same time. You can also switch the split to vertically, which doesn't really help when you have the diagnostics window open. So we'll hide that, and Tier Portal will readjust the split accordingly. You also have, if you right click on an object, close to individually close an object, or you can say close all other editors and it closes everything except for this one object. If I group my objects again, I can right click and say close an entire group, and you can see it going through and closing the groups down. And again, that's useful for saying I'm done with this type of object, I don't need it anymore. Can you close them all down? And making use of screen space in a way that suits you is really important. So if the way this screen is set up right now is something that you want to always have available, you can actually save these as window layouts. So here, for example, I might save this as split screen layout, click save, and that's now saved. And if I say go back to the default window layout, which is the one that comes with Tier Portal, Tier Portal will sit there and sort all of the windows out for you, putting everything back as it was when it was first installed. And then if I come down and click split screen layout, it will go back to how I just had it. It won't necessarily open the blocks that were already there, because the only reason it's doing that is because I hadn't changed which blocks I was looking at. But it would split the screen, hide the diagnostics bar, and this instructions bar would stay as it was. Something that's worth noting is if you do create your own windows and then you change how they're set up, for example, I now float this window and move it to a second screen, and then I go back to my default window layout. Obviously, it will put the floating screen back and sort everything out as it was, as TIA Portal's default window setup is. But when I go back to my split screen layout, it won't go back to how it was when I dragged that window out. It will go back to how it was when that window was saved. And that's just an important touch, because quite often what happens is you set a window up or a window layout up the way you want it, and over time you slowly tweak things, change things. You might make this a little bit narrower, etc. And then you switch to a different view, and when you come back, you have to make all those changes again because you didn't come in and save the new window layout. And that can be a little bit frustrating. And that's really it for the window management. But it is something that is worth knowing, and it's definitely worth taking advantage of, because not very many editors actually allow for such flexibility with Windows.